What's up, y'all? Sorry for being late. We gonna do a two-part on this. I've like up until I hit live now. I was still doing my research, trying to expound upon and really get down to the nitty gritty of what I'm saying. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna make this two parts. Okay, first part here. My second part, I'm gonna do about an hour after we end. I'll give you a time when we end. I'm gonna do the second part on TikTok. I told you I'm gonna be fucking around with TikTok. I'm gonna be trying some things out on TikTok. So, and if you don't have TikTok, I'll put the TikTok over on well, I don't know if I can put it on Patreon or not, but I'm about to do the second part on TikTok. Because there's a lot said in this interview on Drink Champs with Grandmaster Flash. He Grandmaster Flash, I want to start off by saying, no, I'm not gonna use the word tether. I'm not gonna use that on him because I respect him as a legend. But but I understand why some of y'all would, and I wouldn't tell y'all not to. You dig? But as I was listening to this interview, as he was talking about hip hop history, I was really thinking this dude. It's a lot of good information in this, but how he gets to some of his stuff, I'm thinking he really does not understand Black American music history. And I don't think that he's um all the way malicious. I just think that there's an overall lack of understanding of our musical tradition, which is, whether you're from America or not from America, that's very typical with the hip hop generation. The hip hop generation tends to not know a goddamn thing about music before 1985, really before 1980. It's like nothing, then the message. That tends to be the typical hip hop person's mindset when it comes to music. So he's no different than most people in hip hop. So I'm not about to talk shit about him. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go through his Drink Champs interview, and we're going to talk about some of the things that he says and why, and that, he's making it and attributing it to hip hop. And we're going to show and prove why that's not a hip hop thing. It's a continuum. But at the same time, I am going to throw my shots at New York. Yes, I am, because there are also parts in this interview where I'm not going to say New York. I'm going to throw my shots at the Bronx specifically, because there are things going on that he's talking about in this interview that he's attributing to Bronx culture and Bronx this and Bronx that we can show when we go through our Too Short interview, when we go, the same things that was happening in the Bronx in 81, 82, Too Short was doing in Oakland at the same time. The same stuff that was happening in the Bronx in 78, Lonzo from the Wrecking Crew, creator of the Wrecking Crew, Egyptian Lover, they were doing it in LA in 79. The creation of hip hop and what hip hop is an extension of Black American music culture. That's what it is. It's a rebirth. It's music for the not classically trained musician to still participate in music. That's what the music of hip hop is. The non-traditionally trained musician, not saying all of them can't, because a lot of them can play music. Rakim would play the hell out of a saxophone. Drake could play the hell out of the keyboard. So I'm not saying everyone's not a musician, but hip hop made music accessible for non-trained musicians. And the growth of hip hop and the explosion of hip hop happened concurrently with music being taken out of schools. Music gets taken out, music ain't gonna stop. So cats found a way to continue the music going without knowing how to play an instrument. That's really what hip hop is. And what I'm going to do in this next hour and a half is I'm going to prove that. And then whatever I don't finish here, we're going to do over on TikTok. My TikTok is Dewan B1. The same Dewan B at Dewan B. Dewan B1. I got a 3 o'clock appointment, so I got to end this before my 3 o'clock appointment. But I'll probably pick up on TikTok at about 5 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock Eastern. That's probably what we'll do. To whatever I don't finish here, we can finish over there. All right. So, with that being said, welcome chat room. Thank y'all for joining. I ain't even looking. Who do I got up in here? Just because Sean C. Cloth. What's up, everybody that's up in here? We're gonna break all this stuff down. And yeah, they lying again. But I'm gonna be a little bit more diplomatic. You know, well, being the owner and the president of a music historical foundation, y'all gonna see me tone back how much I'm not gonna stop doing it unless they deserve it. But I'm gonna tone certain things back on people that don't deserve it. And in this is Fat Joe, gloves off. I don't care. This is them people that talk like that. But this is Grandmaster Flash. As I'm listening to him talk, because when I first heard it, I was gonna rip into him. But that's only when I heard the clip. So I said, you know what? He deserves more respect than me listening to a clip. Let me go back and watch the whole interview. So I can see the context of what he's speaking. And then when I went back and watched the whole interview, I said, you know what? All right. He's not really being malicious. I really think he just don't know. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off. Where are my notes? I'm going to start off here. 30. We're going to start here, then we're going to go back. This first part is the reason why we're having this discussion right here. Listen to this, and this is going to kick things off. Again, welcome chat room. Go to DewanB.com for everything. Sign up for my TikTok at DewanB1. We're going to cover this. We're going to go do the second half of this over on TikTok. Enroll in my Black American Music Historical Family Tree. Go bam.familytree.org for my foundation. Go on over to this coming Sunday. We're going to have class number 5 on the history of R&B. That's going to be this coming Sunday, y'all. This coming Sunday, class number 5 on the history of R&B on my Music University tier on Patreon. And then Patreon, I'm getting the schedule. I just put a schedule together this week. I'm going to be more consistent on Patreon on certain days. My music stuff. So we're going to be on some of our music shit tomorrow on Patreon. All right. But I'll let you guys know that I'm still finalizing my calendar. I have a lot going on. I just took on a new apartment building to manage, 10 units, and some of these niggas don't want to pay on time. So I got a lot going on right now. But that's all. I'm going to start putting my Patreons and my the times I come here on YouTube. I'm about to start making that stuff more streamlined and more consistent with the time. Because my schedule is getting too crazy right now to where I can't just be coming on at different times anymore. I gotta like carve out, okay, this is the time, this is the time. But that's all coming soon. But thank y'all again for that. So let's go on over. This is the Drink Champs interview. As you can see, oh no, you can't see because I'm not on that screen. Remember people heard me? This is the Drink Champs interview that I'm doing this from, okay? I'm not going to have the video up because I don't want no motherfucking strike. But this is fair use, and this is for educational purpose, all right? Education purposes. Let's go.
So for me, like last summer.
Let me tell you what this is about, because you just don't know what Raheem's is talking. He's talking about right here how this is from the Bronx and how we got to hip hop from the Bronx. So, I mean, how we got to where we are from the Bronx. And I want to contextualize what he says. Let's go.
I sit back, I watch all the press that comes out.
Mm-hmm. Well, Hip Hop 50?
You know, first of all, they shitted on the Bronx for years and years and years. This place has all the fires, the political upheaval, cops taking payoffs. You know, the Bronx is fucked up, and all of a sudden now, the Bronx is the bomb now, and it's this and that, and now it's mainstream. You know, so I'm saying to myself, well, if that is the case, why is it that all the press that I look at, they say, it started right here in 1973 and it's in 2004. So what the fuck happened to where it started, and carefully, chronologically speaking on how it got here? Because you know why that's so important? Because people who are 18,
right,
30.
First, let's break down the first part. He said what he said. What he was talking about. He was talking about the Bronx and how the Bronx was always shitted on, and now people are big up in it because of the quote unquote birth of hip hop. Let's put that in context. Legendary Grandmaster Flash. Again, I have respect for Grandmaster Flash. I'm not about to, as Star Report says, kick his backside in. If y'all do that in the chat room, that's on y'all. Y'all niggas are wild anyway. But hip hop was shitted on because it was created by black people. Anywhere black people live is shitted on. Harlem was shitted on during the time of the Renaissance. Clean suits didn't matter. New Orleans, the ghettos of New Orleans, well, they created this new music called jigaboo music, later known as jazz. Was the ghetto. It was trash. It was jungle music. Till people started to like it, now it is what it is. Chicago, the slums, all that blues and jazz. Chicago, the south side of Chicago wasn't shit. Until they started liking the blues. Until they started loving Muddy Waters. Compton wasn't shit. Till they started liking NWA. This is what I mean by the hip hop guys are so keenly focused in on hip hop, they're not taking a step back and looking at the culture. So what he's calling a Bronx issue further proves my point when I say hip hop is a continuum of Black American culture. Everything that I'm going to point out in this 3-hour-long interview is proof that the issues that he raises and things that he thinks hip hop started comes from something that happened before, created by somebody before them. But hip hop tends to only sample the music and not learn the culture in which that sample music comes from. Let's keep going.
40, 50, you actually have to say you were near 60 to say that you were in the park with us.
Right.
So much respect to the PR and to all the press people. There's a whole 48 years that has not been put in the press. That is unfair to people like myself, like Africa Bambaataa, like Kool Herc, like DJ Breakout? Why isn't this press being definitively put in so that the babies, because things work in trends. Right now, we the shit.
So I agree with him right here. There's a whole lot being left out. You know what else Flash leaves out? You know what else Bambaataa leaves out? You know what else KRS-One? And it seems to be all of the New York hip-hop historians. They leave out what was happening on the West. They leave out what was happening in the South. They leave out what was happening in the Midwest. The hip-hop origin story in LA and in Oakland are two different stories. Ice-T's story and Too Short's story are different. Toddy T's story is different. How they grew into hip-hop was different than how the guys in the Bronx and in New York grew into hip-hop. There's one common bond because in anthropology, what we do is you study the whole field and you boil things down to the common denominator. That's why mathematics is communication and communication is mathematics. They have to equal. Jules Santana, you need to learn both, you stupid motherfucker. Math and reading. Because if you learn, things have to equal out. You know what I mean? So the common bond, whether it was in LA or New York or Oakland, is black culture. Black music being sampled, and the resistance culture of black youth funneled through music. And this resistance culture played its way through bebop, through funk. Disco was resistance culture for the generation just 7 years older than the hip hoppers. The people who turned 21, 22, and 73, disco was their resistance music. Just like the people who were 13 at the time, 15 at the time, they started to get more into hip hop as resistance music. The common bond is black American culture. That's what it all boils down to. That's why you can have a Bronx scene, an Oakland scene, an LA scene, and they're all arriving to the same conclusion from different origin points. That's the common bond. That's the least common denominator. And until hip hop starts to pull back and learn from just the music you sample. And this is the reason why it's so important. It's so important because you sampled the music. You didn't come through and create some whole new soundtrack. So that's the connection. DeJuan may be saying, y'all might be like, DeJuan, that's all old stuff. Why are you bringing up all that old stuff? I'm glad you asked. Because as he goes through and explains in his interview, digging through the crates, what music was he picking up as he dug through those crates? Everything that happened before. The crates, what's in the crates? Funk. Rock is in those crates. Blues is in those crates. Disco is in those crates. And I don't care if it's Aerosmith. Aerosmith was still playing black music. The Beatles were still playing black music. The Rolling Stones were still playing black music. Eric Clapton was still playing black music. They were playing the blues. And this vamp that you guys, this loop, I should say, I said lamp, because I was in between loop and vamp. What hip hop calls a loop, trained musicians call a vamp. Same thing. But like I said, hip hop was music for non-trained musicians. So that's where a lot of that confusion comes in. But everything that hip hop is doing comes from this DNA. So if you really want to understand the DNA of hip hop, you got to dig down to hip hop's roots. You can't separate it and say, hey, it started over here. That's what we mean by framing an argument. Just say this is a frame. Say we just put a box around right here at the top of the tree where it says mainstream hip hop. And you in this top box right here where it says mainstream hip hop. Now you're trying to do a history on how did this get started? Where did this come from? Question. If the only thing you see is this box where it says mainstream hip hop, you're not going to get too far. And that's why when you go into the history of hip hop, the reason why the history of hip hop is so muddy is because it's boxed in. When all it has to do is take a step back. All hip hop has to do in order to get clear on what it comes from, all hip hop has to do is take a step back on the culture surrounding the music that birthed the music that you sample. Do y'all see how that line, that's a flow? Am I tripping, chat room? Am I tripping? But do you not see the flow? The music and the culture, the whole thing hip hop is based off of a DJ. What does a DJ do? A DJ plays music. A DJ is not valuable unless there's music being played. The DJ don't sit down on a trumpet, on a drum set and create the music. The DJ has to play music that's already created. The DJ is a curator of music. So if you want to understand why these heads bob over here up and down to this music, you have to understand the culture that this music that you're sampling comes from to understand why these people over here like it. You can't just come in as a DJ, music's already made, people already know what they like, and say, hey, this is a starting point. No, that's not the starting point. You came in on the middle, nigga. The DJ is the middleman. So if hip hop is based on the DJ, can the DJ tell the story as the middleman? Or does the middleman got to go back to his supplier and understand his supplier to understand the chain of command from supplier to middleman to end user? You dig? Do y'all see how comprehensive how this just flows? Versus if you just listen to one of these hip hop niggas talk, well, no, it was the Bronx, you see, and no, it was DJ Bill Pickett, and it was MC Long Titties, like. So much confusion on a hip hop story because hip hop is starting at the middle point, really at the end point. And you're trying to find the beginning of something from the end. That's right, Street Nasty Entertainment. The DJ has to be honest about the role that he plays. The DJ has become too self-important. And we're going to get into the history of the DJ. We're going to do I'm gonna do a Patreon on that pretty soon. But let's go first. Let's go further. Because everything in hip hop is taken from something else. Like someone brought up the Zulu Nation. The Zulu Nation was named itself after one nation, Parliament Funkadelic. The Zulu Nation, according to Africa Bambaataa himself, was his version of Parliament Nation, the P-Funk Nation, one nation under a groove. Even that right there, if you want to understand the Zulu Nation, if you want to understand how that was put together, you got to understand how George Clinton masterminded his history. Bootsy Collins, The Brides of Funkenstein, Roger Troutman before CBS took him, Parlett, Bernie Worrell, Fred Hampton, not Fred, I'm about to say Fred Hampton. Y'all know what I'm talking, Eddie Hazel. You got to understand that concept to understand the Zulu Nation. Again, Zulu Nation, nothing original about the Zulu Nation. No, the term Zulu warriors comes from the movie Zulu Nation. The concept of the Zulu Nation, how the Zulu Nation was structured, comes from Parliament Funkadelic. That's why Africa Bambaataa wore the Egyptian shit. And that's why they literally dressed like the Parliament Funkadelic Nation. Yeah, this is by the way they dressed. They were imitating Parliament Funkadelic, right? So, what's up, Rocky? Rocky just came up in here. So that's one point. So let's get into let me get my timestamps up. And let's go back and listen to this right here, all right? Oh, she's on mute. My bad.
Is DJ Hollywood considered a DJ, a disco DJ?
When I met Hollywood, he was bigger than disco. And he was actually king in the discos.
Okay.
And he was actually one of the first DJs I seen that was able to have 4 or 5 parties in one night. Like we would set our equipment up and play from 9 to 4 in the gymnasium or whatever. This was playing.
Cheryl, let me know if y'all getting feedback or not. So he's talking about the early DJs that inspired him. Hey, Peter, Philadelphia soul goes back over 200 years. You don't go around talking about some damn Tom Bell. No, he's not. The creator of Philly soul is Gamblin' Huff. Tom Bell was a producer and an arranger that learned the Philadelphia sound. The Philadelphia sound musically in America goes back to the 17 motherfucking hundreds. All right, so don't go around just that's the thing. Y'all come from somewhere else and y'all get immersed in our culture, and they be like, we brought it from Jamaica. No, you didn't. You came around a culturally rich environment, and you gave your interpretation of our sound. None of that. There were no musty Jamaican rhythms in the Philadelphia sound. The Philadelphia sound is heavily steeped in orchestration. And that goes back to Frank Johnson, who was born in 1791, and he composed the first written music in American history in the year 1818. Out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. These niggas love coming from somewhere else and be like, look what we brought. Man, you didn't bring shit but must and white jeans in the wintertime, okay? Now let's go. You're right. Jamaica's been there since the 1600s, and show me some motherfucking music out of Jamaica that the world likes. Oh, reggae? You got it from us. Now back to what we're talking about.
11 o'clock at Club 1 in Manhattan, and then maybe 12 to 1 in Brooklyn, Club 2, and then Club 3 in Staten Island is getting cake. I consider him like one of the smartest in the game at that time because he got five checks.
Right.
He was doing this shit, but he was doing it disco.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why I brought him up, because you said disco.
He was talking about Disco King Mario. And disco, and the different, he's talking about and the different disco DJs. Let's break down the term disco. Discotheque. Disco is short for the word discotheque. A discotheque, it was just a name at the time for a club. In 1973, 71, before the so-called birth of hip-hop, there was no form of music called disco in 1972. You had discotheques, which were nightclubs, dance clubs, but no form of music called disco until Barry White's Love's Theme, 1973, Out of LA, and the 3 Degrees, Gamblin' Huff, Philadelphia Soul, the sound of Philadelphia, better known as Soul Train. Better known as Soul Train, Four on the Floor. And the disco beat, Four on the Floor, was created by Earl Young. And that was first debuted in the song The Love I Lost by Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes. Okay? So these were environments that was already in. And to just so whoever that Jamaican dude was in the chat room earlier, just to shut you up, the 3 Degrees did that song MFSB, and that was by Gamblin' Huff. And no, Tom Bell did not produce that song. That was produced by Gamblin' and Huff. Okay. But that was a 3 Degrees. So understand that the music that we know as music, the music of disco, started the same year as hip hop. Let me say that one more time. The music known as disco started the same year as hip hop. It's just that when disco started, because disco is another child of R&B, but it's a distinct sound, it took off right away and went to the top. Hip hop at that time hadn't had enough music. It didn't have its own original music. The hotbed, the greatest American music was done in the 60s from 65 to 79. That's when America's creative boom musically was just at its peak. 65 to 79, which is also a series that we do over on Patreon. The music of that era, 65 to 79. So the reason why disco took off, because disco was creating something new that we hadn't heard before. Creating. Hip hop didn't create shit. Hip hop had to wait till music was done being created at its highest level to then have a soundtrack to sample from. Because most of your hip hop breaks happened on lesser known albums of the late 60s and all throughout the 70s. You got to be able to talk about the beginning before the beginning if you want to understand the beginning and the present. If you want to understand a tomato, you got to understand the seed in the soil. You cannot start the history of a tomato, of a tree, of a blade of grass without understanding the seed and the soil. Without proper understanding of the seed and the soil, you won't understand what comes out of it. And if people can't give you the seed in the soil, they bullshitting you. And hip hop is neither seed nor soil. It's a fruit of the seed in the soil. That's why there's so much confusion over what hip hop is. Because y'all trying to start the history at the seed in the soil. I mean, at the fruit, and not the seed in the soil. Again, we're gonna have part 2 on Patreon. Y'all need. I'm not on Patreon, on TikTok. Go to TikTok at Dewan B1, the same as my Cash App. Go to Dewan B1. That's where we're gonna finish this off. Whatever I don't finish here, we're gonna finish over on TikTok.
Term MCing.
This is when he talks about the first hearing the term MC.
Yeah. What is the term? When's the first time you heard the term MCing?
The first time I heard the term MCing is when I took the microphone. All right, I was playing in 63 Park, Bronx, DJing. People were looking at the table. What is this magic trick and the shit he's doing? I needed somebody to take the attention off of me. Right. So I put a microphone on the other side of the table, Nori. Right. And anybody that could talk to this new style of DJing. Lots of it was whack, but it was this one guy that I eventually met. His name was Keith Wiggins. Street name is Cowboy.
Keith Cowboy?
Keith Cowboy. Okay. If I played Apache or played whatever, he had a way of having the crowd, I called it hip-hop aerobics almost. He had him here, so now, being the shy geek person that I was, I could go to my collection and go in because Cowboy going to stay with me. Right. I asked him, do you want to stay with me so we could go to different parks, different areas and do this? And he said, why not?
So he goes in and he's talking about
That's the first time I heard MCing.
Okay, let me explain you a little.
MC comes from the American term master of ceremonies. The master of ceremonies is the person that, whether it be host an event or whatever, the master of ceremonies is the person that keeps a show or an event going along. Person that grabs the mic and they keep the chain of events moving along. So even the term MC, master of ceremonies, isn't a thing that started with hip hop. It's been there long before that. Okay? Long before that. Long before that. But, you know, again, that comes down to knowing the history. Because, like, even the DJ part, let me see, where's that time step I have for the DJ? Where's that time step I have for the DJ part? Let me see here. 4630. 4630. Because here he talks about, because he makes a good point here talking about the breadcrumbs and knowing what comes before. Let me break down the DJ for y'all, okay? Listen to him talk about this part on the breadcrumbs, and we're going to dig into some of the history of the DJ.
Dads, right. My uncles, you know, my aunts taught us. So it's like what you're saying, Nori. You know, we as elder states people have to inform the babies. Absolutely. This is why I'm saying the breadcrumbs from the 70s to now, you have to put all of them down. You can't just say the Bronx ain't shit, and then all of a sudden these next 2 years, the Bronx is the shit, and they went from this to that. Right. So how the fuck did it happen? Right. And who did it? Some people lost their lives. Some people ain't here no more. Right. That helped make this shit what this shit is. Right. And this is why I find it really important. I think the DJ is
and I agree with that. But the breadcrumbs cannot start in the 70s. The breadcrumbs got to start with the music that you took. Because that's where the history lies. Not from the point where you start taking the music on. That's the middle point.
Extremely important because there was a time before.
He talked about how important the DJ is right here.
or the game changed, record companies like Def Jam and all the other labels used to bring me white labels. 1 o'clock in the morning, knocking on my door saying this shit is fresh off the fucking press. We need you to play this song and tell us what this record is doing. We DJs.
You was the influencer before influencer was an influencer.
Absolutely. Right.
Yes.
And so all this constitutes the building blocks of why this thing is still here. Why don't we do this step by step by step by step by step? It's just...
Okay, let's do it step by step by step by step. He's talking about the importance of the DJ. All right, let's go. Let's break the importance of the DJ down. The DJ did not start with hip hop. The DJ comes from radio, not from hip hop. Comes from radio. And the radio DJ was the most influential person in black music from the 40s through 1996, the Telecommunications Act of 96. And again, you can learn more about this in The Death of Rhythm and Blues by Nelson George. The DJ was also the MC. Before there was a Grandmaster Flash DJing and a Cowboy MCing, before there was a Kool Herc DJing and a Coke Rock MCing, you had DJs like Daddy O'Daly, who used to DJ and rap at the same time. You also had Jockey Jack, better known as the original Jack the Rapper. Do y'all know that Jack the Rapper was the originator of the personality DJ? And it was the personality DJ that were doing the things that later on hip-hop DJs, the things that hip-hop DJs took to the park and took to clubs, it was the personality DJ doing so on the radio. And you cannot separate these radio DJs from the hip-hop DJs, because at the time, these radio DJs are the most powerful men in music. So 100% of these hip-hop DJs were turning the radio and listening to the original DJ Red Alert, the original Jazzy J. Before there was a Jazzy Jeff, there was a Jazzy J. Al Benson in Chicago in the 40s. Jocko Henderson. There was a whole list of these guys. And what they were doing in early hip-hop, these are the breaks. Bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. They were sounding like Jack the Rapper. They were sounding like Jocko Henderson. These are the most powerful men in music at the time. Everybody knows who these people are. Maybe not in different cities, because, Chicago got its DJ, but in every city, you got 4 or 5 DJs on every station that's bringing it. So what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to play, this is Jack the Rapper. I'm going to play some Jack the Rapper. This is a short interview. It's like a minute and 40 long clip of Jack the Rapper. And this is him talking about, the early days of being a personality DJ. And it was these early personality DJs that brought the flavor that would later grow into hip hop.
Had to be a style. You had to have what we call a hook. And my hook became when I changed my name, when the word came out that we were known as disc jockeys. And since my name was Jack, I said, Disc Jockey Jack. Let's take the disc off and just call me Jockey Jack. And that's how I got my trade name of Jockey Jack. And then I felt one time we were doing a show or something and somebody was crying in the record. And myself, I just flipped the microphone on and wanted to know why she was crying. And I answered and she answered in singing, and then I would tell her, well, then I know why you're crying, because, you haven't been over to my house for couple of weeks or something like that. And boy, the audience fell out with that. People would go to the store and try to buy the record, and they couldn't find my voice in the record, and they'd want to turn the record back. But that began what we call personality radio. We were very involved in, just in the records. We talked with the records, we sang with the records, we ran trains through the records. We had folks laughing and used all kind of sound effects and everything we could. But it made entertainment because each disc jockey that was on the air at that particular time had his own style. So if you listened to 4 disc jockeys a day, you would hear 4 different styles. Even if there was the same record, you would hear him introduce 4 different ways. Different disc jockeys would introduce the record 4 different ways.
Does it not sound like the early, the pre-Jay-Z era of hip hop? Had to have your own personality, had to have your own rap, your own way to MC to move the crowd. Y'all see that? And I know it's a bunch of bitter ass New Yorkers in here. Well, y'all, most of y'all that are bitter, y'all not. Well, a lot of my native New Yorkers point out to me all the time that a lot of y'all are not New Yorkers. You're mostly Caribbeans, and you thought you had a win when you heard these niggas lie to y'all about hip hop. You thought you had a win. Then you're realizing that all this shit that you thought you created goes back centuries before you got here. It creates something called cognitive dissonance. And instead of you being mad at who lied to you, you mad at the messenger who's just pointing out this thing that was around long before your mama was born.
So good on me.
This is Jocko Henderson. This is what they were listening to on the radio in New York. They were listening to Jocko Henderson.
Shaker any place. I got a big bad radar beam, guaranteed to make you scream. I'm clean. It's the ball of health.
That's Jocko Henderson, 1979. Before the message. Jocko, this just was recorded. Jocko Henderson was doing this in the 60s. You could pull up footage from Jocko Henderson in the 60s doing this to jazz.
Do the best you can. You need a loan from the bank.
And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to Flash. You knew you were listening to Jocko Henderson growing up in New York. You grew up in New York or Philadelphia, you were listening to Jocko Henderson. Why is it so hard for you New Yorkers
Radio
to
had
give
to
that
be a
man
style.
credit?
Radio.
My bad. That was an accident. Why is it so hard for y'all to give that man his credit?
The moon with gotta go with the rocket ship commander. Jocko, -4. 3.
That's Jocko Henderson.
We're on our way. Yes, all right. And we'll be here until 10 o'clock. In the meantime.
This is Jocko Henderson. Where is it?
The rocketeers are lying.
Here it is. I'm going to go back. This is Jocko Henderson, 1957.
The rocketeers are lined up side by side, ready to take them on the.
That's when he started. Not that song. That song is from the 80s. But that shit started in the 70s, in 1957 with Jocko Henderson. I'm looking for one.
Uroy's expert. Well,
Oh, not that. Not that.
This is Jocko Engineer Bud, the big boy. 3, 2, 1, take it up. It's Captain at 0. This is Jock and I'm back on.
Here it is. Do y'all know how I know about Jocko Henderson? I know about Jocko Henderson because unlike these selfish ass hip hop niggas, the funk guys like George Clinton told the history of where it comes from. And listen to this right here.
Mighty loud and clear. East to the yacht. This is Jock and I'm back on the scene with the record machine saying who pop do. How do you do?
See, because not only did hip hop borrow from the DJs, so did funk. The difference is the funk guys give credit. That's the only difference. Let me see here. Let me give you let me tell you how I learned that from George Clinton. No. I need the Motor Booty Affair album. Here it is, Mr. Wiggles. George Clinton used to rap. And this is a song he has on the beginning of the Motor Booty Affair album. It's called Mr. Wiggles.
Back on.
Listen to George Clinton rap.
Did ya?
Silence. Primal heartbeats could be seen with the naked eye.
Did ya? Oh, I'm the jock and I'm back on the scene with my record machines and ooh, papa doo. How do y'all do?
Y'all heard him say that? That was George Clinton on the Motor Booty Affair. You know where he got that from?
Mighty loud and clear. East to the yacht. This is Jock and I'm back on the scene with the record machine saying who pop do. How do you do?
It's a continuum from radio to the music. And the hip hop guys didn't do nothing that the funk guys didn't do when it came to taking inspiration from the radio. The difference is the funk guys gave credit, saying, hey, I got my rap from radio. But these selfish ass New York niggas want to act like they the ones that started this shit. So when he's talking about the importance of him as a DJ, yes. But that didn't start with hip hop. You inherited that culture from these guys. That's why in the 1970s, look up the payola scandal. They targeted black DJs had gotten so powerful in the 60s and the 70s. The United States government came up with this whole payola investigation, and it disproportionately targeted black personality DJs. Frankie Crocker was the main one. Jocko Henderson. All these DJs I tell y'all about, the same way the government targeted hip hop. Another thing you lame ass hip hop niggas that don't study your fucking history don't understand. Y'all ain't the first motherfuckers the government targeted, nigga. They targeted Curtis Mayfield. They targeted Aretha Franklin. They targeted James Brown and King Records. And they targeted black DJs in the 70s. Learn your history, hip hop niggas. They targeted the DJ too. And they basically, through the bullshit ass payola scandal, they got rid of black personality DJs. So when the 80s came, DJs were more mellow. They were more straight ahead as the 80s and the 90s came. Again, I know this is causing cognitive dissonance for you niggas that your family got here in 1967. I understand you might be a little pissed off because you didn't know this. But go blame your history teacher, blame your parents, blame yourself for not studying the country you moved to. Okay? This is old shit. The difference is the funk guys, George Clinton, I thank George Clinton for laying that breadcrumb down. George Clinton was the reason why I even knew to even study Frankie Crocker and Jocko Henderson and those guys. And then I read this book, Death of R&B by Nelson George, where they talked about them later on. But I didn't even think to study the radio DJs until I saw a documentary on George Clinton. Somebody said, look at this. He said the problem is Dewan knows Black American music history, but he doesn't know Black Jamaican music history. Yes, I do know Black Jamaican music history, Rio. I know that your guys in the 60s came over to America in the 50s and the 40s. They're picking sugar canes in Florida, and the start of the Jamaican music industry was getting Black American music records and playing them for your sound system contests that you guys had in the 60s. But you guys, like in your sound system contest, playing Black American music. No, you don't know Jamaican music history, brother or sister. I don't know if you buy or not. You don't know Jamaican music history. Rocksteady comes from rock and roll here in America. Ska comes from rhythm and blues, rock and roll here in America. Reggae comes from rhythm and blues in America. Reggae is a spinoff of Motown. Ask your Jamaican original artists. They will tell you this. They will tell you, Sir Coxendine will tell you he got toasting from Jocko Henderson, the same DJ. American music history is Jamaican music history of the last 100 years. Son, listen. Jamaican music history is American music history. You took our drum set, you took our DJing equipment, you took our bass guitar in your music, you took our lead guitar, you took our melodies and fucked them up, but you took them. You don't know about Johnny Nash being the first person to invest in the Wailers. Bob Marley's first contract was from Black American Johnny Nash. Yes, I do know Jamaican music history. I know that you're our son. So sit back and listen to me, son. You're our son. Stay in the son's place and listen to daddy talk. You'll learn something about your music history of the last 80 years by listening to me. Any Jamaican out there listening? Because y'all decided to sit soca down. Y'all decided to stop playing calypso. If you stayed in calypso, if you stayed in soca, if you stayed in the other shit that y'all played, I wouldn't have nothing to say. But you niggas came into our territory with reggae, with ska, with rocksteady, with dancehall. That came from us. Now, sorry for the quick, I had a quick little delay. I had to make that little quick left-hand turn right there to let the Jamaican know you have to understand our music and music culture to understand your music and music culture. All the way down to your toasting. And hold on. Why do y'all even use the word toasting? That name is stupid. Y'all took we call it the dozens. We call it clowning. We call it ranking. We call it shooting. We call it bagging. We got some dope ass names for the art. Y'all call it toasting. Nigga, toasting is something that you do at the end of the night at somebody's wedding. I hold a toast. That's a toast. Y'all came up with that old whack ass name for our oral tradition of clowning. Nah, it's the dozens. Appreciate that reread for the super chat. 444. Yes. Who came up with the word toasting? Y'all lose a point for that whack ass word. I know Trinidadians created Calypso in Jamaica. I didn't say, did I ever say that Jamaicans created Calypso? No. I said that's what they like listening to. Trinidad, the crown jewel of music in the Caribbean is actually Cuba. Cuba and Trinidad too, for the south part of the Caribbean. But for the north part of the Caribbean, the crown jewel musically comes out of Cuba. Yeah, but toasting is a whack ass word for that, man. Like, nah, y'all gotta come. And then and if y'all created toasting, where are y'all stand up comedians? Where's y'all? You know, I know y'all got some funny people, but shit, we got Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle. Where you at? Ain't no Jamaican equipment to Def Comedy Jam. Talking about some y'all invented toasting, and y'all ain't even got a goddamn Def Comedy Jam. Y'all ain't got a Comic View. Y'all ain't got a Martin Lawrence. No, reggae is just like hip hop, brother. It's an offshoot. It's not original. All of your reggae comes from it. Reggae is just y'all trying to flip what we do. That's all reggae is. Reggae is just a Jamaican. It's just a musty R&B. That's all reggae is. Reggae is musty R&B. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. It's musty R&B. That's all it is. Sorry to burst your bubble. Mm. Yeah, Roscoe Gordon is y'all king. Fats Domino is y'all king. It's just so. This is why we got to delineate, y'all. Appreciate that, John Paul. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on your neck. But this is the reason why we delineate, because we as Black Americans have given so much to the world. Now we got the people who couldn't even take the time to learn their own music history coming back to us, saying that they gave us something. Like, hold on, my grandmama, how you gonna bring me back my grandmama's fine china and say that you gave it to us? You just giving my grandmama, like, you didn't have nothing that you liked. Now, no, you did have something, but you obviously didn't like it, so you had to come borrow from us, and we said, here, go ahead, have a good time. We don't want to listen to that shit, but go ahead. We got too much Barry White over here to listen to that. Well, and then y'all come back 20 years later, here returning the plate that we gave you, and you saying, look at what I'm giving you. Nigga, that's my grandmama plate. Get that shit. Fuck out my house. Trump. Hey, Donald Trump. There's one right here, Trump. Get him, Trump. I can't stand Trump until these times. So let's go back into this interview. So let's go back into the culture. Let's go back into this part right here when he goes into the music that he was playing. Let's break down Flash talking about the music he was playing. Hey, Accolade 310, you got a good point. He said they play them same old rock and roll and blues chords and riffs from the 50s and reggae today. Right. I listened to some new reggae. It's some new reggae group I listened to when I went to the the reggae fest at Hollywood Bowl this past summer. I'm like, these niggas are still playing that? Damn. But let's listen to this. Let's listen to this part.
I'm seeing.
Okay, let me interrupt you a little bit because, all right, but what are you playing? If this record wasn't made, what are you actually DJing?
I'm playing.
So this part here, I gotta go back before that because Nori asked a stupid ass question before this. Let me go back before this.
Hip hop aerobics almost. He had him here, so now, being the shy geek person that I was, I can go to my collection and go in because Cowboy going to stay with me.
Right.
I asked him, do you want to stay with me so we could go to different parks and different areas and do this? And he said, why not? That's the first time I heard MC.
Okay, let me interrupt you a little bit because, all right, but what are you playing? If this record wasn't made, what are you actually DJing?
I'm playing Apache, I'm playing Rufus Thomas, I'm playing the Incredible Bongo Band, I'm playing...
Okay.
Oh, man. My collection. I'm playing Curtis Mayfield, I'm playing early Mandrill, I'm playing early Barry White, I'm in my head right now.
Because I want to establish this. I want to establish this for all the listeners listening. You're saying the very first hip-hop parties didn't play hip-hop?
Right there. That stupid ass question by Nori. Flash is going through the early songs that he was playing in the early hip hop days, and he asked, "Let me slow it down because I played that a little fast. Let me slow this part down on regular time so y'all can hear this stupid ass question in real time."
Early Barry White, I'm in my head right now.
Because I want to establish this. I want to establish this for all the listeners listening. So you're saying the very first hip hop parties didn't play hip hop?
And that, matter of fact, that's a good question Nori had to ask because he knows that you got, when it comes to a lot of people, when it comes to the history of hip hop, people really think that hip hop has its own sound. So Nori asked, on the early days of hip hop, you weren't playing hip hop. Of course they weren't playing hip hop. There was no hip hop music to be played. Which goes back to my point. Hip hop is a recreation. It's not a start. It's an end point. The music that hip hop would thrive on was still being created in the 70s. The reason why disco took off was because disco had its own sound, its own beat. And they had musicians that created it fresh. That's why disco took off. They didn't have to sample that. The reason why hip hop and disco started the same year. Hip hop and disco started the same year. In 1973, hip hop and disco were on the same level because no one had ever heard either art form before 1973. Okay? The advantage disco had was the musicians and producers can create a song like that. They didn't have to dig in crates to find somebody doing it already. That's the difference between hip hop being a an offshoot, a receiver, and not an originator. Barry White didn't dig Disco, there were no crates to dig through for Barry White when he created this. There were no crates you can dig in. He hummed that. And then Gene Page, when he got his pen, his pencil, and his paper, and he wrote out everything that you hear those strings playing. There was an arranger that wrote those parts out. And then there was a composer that put it all together. So that's the early days of disco. And then disco continued to thrive. Donna Summer. There was no digging through a crate. You had to create it. The greatest music in American history was still being created at the same time hip hop was starting. That's the reason you don't hear any hip hop music between 1973 and Rapper's Delight. And then you don't really hear much hip hop from Rapper's Delight until The Message. It was some Curtis Blow thrown in there. You heard certain stuff. You know, Too Short was doing his thing over here in Oakland. But outside of this generation coming up, you don't hear much of the music between 73 and 80. Because there wasn't enough music for them niggas to sample yet. The crates were still being filled. Disco didn't have to worry about crates. Yeah, Candy Staten, yeah. Young Hearts. Someone in the chat has mentioned Candy Staten. She had this song right here. Yeah. I used to listen to my mom used to always listen to Candy Staten's gospel album when I was a kid. I thought Candy Staten was a gospel singer. It wasn't until I got older that I saw that she sang disco. My mom used to love her gospel.
Gonna love me for the rest of my days. Encourage the babies.
Young Hearts, run free. All that shit came from scratch. So when Nori's talking about that you weren't playing hip hop, no, because hip hop didn't create its own music. Chat room. Y'all heard me say this before, right? Y'all heard me say this before. Hip hop didn't create shit. But it takes from all of this stuff, but don't want to study what it comes from. You dig what I'm saying? And what we're going to do is, I've never done TikTok live, but we're gonna go on over to TikTok at 5 p.m. Pacific time and go even deeper in this. And I'm going to continue this series also over on Patreon so I can play music. Again, hip hop, just like house music, took off with a generation that wasn't classically or formally trained musicians. Hip hop / house music was music for people who weren't formally trained. That's why the crates are so important. Because you gotta listen for a sound. You listening for the right sound when a trained musician is gonna hear the right sound come from the spirit and fucking play it. Or I'm a drummer. You know, okay, I want this horn part, but I don't know what I want. I'm going to call Terrence Blanchard. I'm going to call Keon Harrell or somebody that plays the trumpet, and we going to jam and groove and I'm going to use their genius to come up with a part for this. That's how music was traditionally stacked. Either we're going to get it through a groove, or I'm going to get an arranger like a James Carmichael, a Tom Washington, people like that, and they'll just write it out. I remember asking my father-in-law, Mr. James Carmichael, about, like, I remember he needed some horn parts for this song right here. When he created this song, my father, this is why I have no patience for hip hop niggas. My father-in-law created this song. There was no crate. Everything you hear, he wrote from scratch. Wasn't putting something in the ear and digging through a crate. Oh yeah. No. He wanted that, so he had to fucking write it. And then once he wrote it, he had to take it to the band and say, play it like this. Put this texture on it. Do it this way. To any of y'all Jamaicans in here listening, not the ones that is cool. I'm talking about the tether ones. Cause your daddy, your family did the same thing with our music. All that Jamaican music, all that rock steady, all that reggae was them digging through the crates and replaying what we did. That's all your reggae is of the 80s, of the 70s, 60s, even now. All the ska, rock steady reggae of the 50s, 60s, and 70s was them digging through crates, replaying in their way what we created from scratch. Write those string parts. He had to get a pencil and a paper and music notes and hire a string section and say, play what I just wrote. Horns, play what I just wrote. That's how we create music. That's how we create music. And as I'm listening to this interview, there's no respect for that component of the music. It's as if Drink Champs, and again, no disrespect to Drink Champs nor Grandmaster Flash, but it's like y'all talking about this music as if it's some stuff that was just already there. Now here we come and just like you just taking it all the way for granted. How it got put together. And because one thing about music is a mathematical equation. And you gotta find what parts work with the other parts and put it together so that there's space for everything. Let me give another example. When you get to our music, it's a way to kind of figure out what's going on. And you can't play everything at once. Everything has to have its own place. Let me give you an example. This is another one of my father-in-law's compositions, When Love Calls by Atlantic Starr. Listen to how the song plays. The bass player just doom, doom, doom. There's a layer to everything. A big mistake if you decide to hesitate. He had to write that song out to where the bass player just playing two notes. Doom, doom, doom. Because the bass is driving the song. The drums are at a lower level. There's space. Because her voice is so magnificent, you got to create space for that voice to cut through. So the bass player can't be playing every note at the same time. So the bass player gets signed every eight when he plays this. It's a way of spacing and putting this part with that part, with this inflection, with that inflection. And it's a lot of chemistry that goes into making a song. George Clinton was a master because you can play music. I look at I listen to George Clinton and all the musicians that he had in his music. Like for him to be able to put that all together the way he did. Let me see. Why ain't you playing? On this song, Not Just Knee Deep, you got like 15 musicians playing. And there has to be space for everybody to express their opinion and not get in the other person's way. What I'm saying is what these DJs call the best part of a song, which is such an insult, or what they call the right part of the song to sample. You don't know. Sometimes it takes hours. I mean, not hours. It takes months to get that part of a song right. Because this chord got to match with that chord. This melody got to match with that harmony. This drum beat got to be locked in with that bass. These horns got to come in right at the right time, juxtaposed to the strings. And putting that together is a lot of work. When Mr. Carmichael put together this song right here, I talked to my father-in-law about this song right here. He composed this song right here. That song, do you know that Mr. Carmichael said he had to use over 100 musicians to put that song together? Because there's so much music going on in the background that the average ear don't even pick up. This here, listen to this. Listen to this crescendo. It took him bringing in more than 100 musicians to get that song right. People in the background, I think he said it took him like 4 months to get that song after hundreds of musicians. That's Richard Marx. That's that white boy Marx singing all night. That all night long part. That's Richard Marx singing that. The band is some members from Toto, other members from the Crusaders. I think Joe Sample's on that. And it took 4 months for that song to become right, to get right. Only for some hip-hop nigga to come around and be like, yo, man, I dug in the crates and I found this part. You know how much work it takes to get to that fucking part? And that's my issue with a lot of the hip-hop conversation. There's no respect for what it took to get there. And then you got somebody that comes in from Jamaica saying, well, hip-hop is Jamaican. The fuck? This is why we take it so personal. Because even when it comes to your music, you still got it from my granddaddy. Are you talking about Love Ballad? Love Ballad was written by one of my music mentors, Skip Scarborough. Do y'all know that the song Love Ballad by LTD was written by the same person. He wrote these two songs, Love Ballad and Love's Holiday. I'm gonna give y'all, I've talked this on Patreon, but he wrote Love Ballad and Love's Holiday and Don't Ask My Neighbors are like all in the same weekend, dealing with issues with his wife. Skip Scarborough, he wrote this first. This is written by Skip Scarborough because he was having issues with his wife at the time. So he was saying, instead of asking everybody else, just come straight to me. And he wrote that song and he gave it to Maurice White. And Maurice White was like, perfect. Maurice White and Charles Stepney then put that song together for the Emotions. The same weekend, Skip Scarborough wrote this song. Watch it back. That song was written a couple years prior. I'm sorry, that song was written a couple years prior, but it's still written by Skip Scarborough. This is the song that Skip Scarborough wrote that same weekend. Love's Holiday. He wrote that because that was like the makeup song. But the song that got all of those songs put together was this song. Love Ballad. Skip Scarborough wrote this song too, all on the same weekend. And he gave that song to Earth, Wind & Fire first. But Charles Stepney and Maurice White chose Love's Holiday, and they put that together for the All in All album. Well, it ended up going later on then. But since Maurice White turned down that song, Skip Scarborough gave it to LTD. And LTD recorded it. But this was, all three songs were written about one particular marriage. The distrust, the anger, the pain of your woman not feeling you anymore, to the makeup. Again, Black American music family tradition, which is born in the church with our music.
So
You write that composition. Ooh, I love that competition. Them strings. Come on now. Come on now. Come on. But it's like when you listen to going back to this interview, when you listen to interviews like this, it totally just muddles over all of this creation from source. And y'all, like a lot of y'all, again, no disrespect to Matt to Flash, but a lot of y'all sound like white people when it comes to our music. Let's just take from these geniuses something that we can create on our own goddamn selves, and let's just act like these creations were always there and they're just there for me to pick from. And even when you go into the point that he's making the type music that they played, even when he goes into that point, there's a part later on where he's talking about the type of music that they played, that they made together. And he's talking about, like, we got white music. He says that. We got white music? The white music was still black music knockoffs. Eric Clapton. That's Chess Records. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, that's all Chess Records. Aerosmith. I don't care. The Monkees. The Bee Gees. Go down the list. What? See, this is what I want y'all to understand. Going back to my music tree. This is what I want y'all to understand. Let's pull this music tree back up. When it comes to reggae music, Jamaican music, their music got put together, not their native original music, the music of their islands post the 1950s. They made their music the same way the white folks in England make their music. Remixes of our music. Led Zeppelin, remix of our music. Pink Floyd, remix of our music. The Wailers, remix of our music. The Osmonds, remix of our music. Hall & Oates, remix of our music. We create it first, and then others come behind and do their own version of our creation. So when Flash goes in and saying, no, it's all music. We do all music. No. What's my rule of thumb, kids? And here's how you get to the nitty gritty. If a song has a 2/4 backbeat, it is Black American. If it has a drum set or drum machine, which is a electronic version of a drum set, it's Black American music. If it has a bass guitar or a moog, which is an offshoot of a bass guitar, it's Black American music. The chords are centered around a piano, a keyboard. It's Black American music. What's the 2/4 black backbeat? Pick a song. Any song. Not any song, but any song. If you're talking about 4/4 time. Let's break it down. 2/4. Y'all ready to count? Because I only got 8 seconds to play before I get a strike. Y'all ready to count? Let's count. We're about to start right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 2/4. The drums on the 2 and the 4. Let's go to Carole King. Carole King is a white woman, but she's still doing black music. And it's too late, baby, now it's too late. I love that song. And it's too late, baby, now it's too late. And I'm playing right now, for those of you on Patreon, this is from my Grandmaster playlist. This is from my Master R&B playlist. This playlist is available exclusively on Patreon. 1,500 songs of rhythm and blues. The golden era of R&B playlist is available on my Patreon. Every song that I play is off this list. That's the American sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anytime you hear music counted like that, it's an offshoot of what we do. Because the rest of the world's downbeats on the 1 and the 3, or on the quarter note, not the 2 and the 4. Go to any music university on the planet, they will agree with me. Because your music,
bend down if you's a big dance. Waistline cause you's a big dance.
even that beat is, obviously, I'm looking for some original soca, not this new shit. I want to hear some classic shit. Hear that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Hear that quarter, that downbeat, quarter notes? Your downbeat's the quarter note. That's how y'all get down. Africa, Caribbean, that's how y'all get down. The quarter note or the 1 and 3. That's y'all beat. That's y'all beat. That's some this new shit. I want some old shit, not this new shit. Fuck this new shit. I'm looking for some old classics. Come on now. I want to hear this new shit. You heard the difference in tempo? That tempo is native to your music. That tempo is native to your music. That sound is native to your music. Our sound is another Black American sound. So this is just the first part. We have more to break down, and I'm going to break that down over on TikTok at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to break that down, the rest of this down over on TikTok. We're going to go through more of this interview, and then we're going to break more of this down over on TikTok. Because I haven't even gotten through, I've only gotten through 20% of the clips I want to get through. It goes so deep how none of this cultural stuff is mentioned. And I think a lot of it is because, again, he came from Barbados. So he came in on the middle of something. And when he react to the loop, he said, oh, I like the part where they dance to the breakdown. That's because that's our culture. The 2-bar loop comes from the blues. You just came in at a time the music had expanded to where it was so many other elements involved in it. But if we strip all that back down, we just get back to the blues, 2-bar loop. What y'all call a 2-bar vamp. What y'all call looping a breakbeat. What y'all call looping a breakbeat, we just call a vamp. A blues vamp. But you gotta know music. And if you ain't spent time learning an instrument and playing music in a black church, then you don't know our music. The only people who know our music are the ones that are from here and the ones who grew up playing it in church. If you didn't grow up playing our music in church, you don't understand this shit. You think you created some new shit, and you didn't. This nigga said nothing but jingle bells and bongo drums. I'm done with y'all. I'm done with y'all. But yeah, we gonna go do more of this in a couple hours over on TikTok, all right? Until then, I gotta get to my appointment. We're gonna finish this over on TikTok, and then at TikTok, if I can find a way to get it off TikTok, I'll put it up over on Patreon, all right? And over here if I can, but go follow me on TikTok, Dewan B1. Same Dewan B here, but put a 1 in front of it. Dewan B1 on TikTok. Go find me on TikTok at Dewan B1. We're gonna finish this off over there at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, all right? Thank y'all again for listening, and we're gonna finish this off over there. We ain't done. We are not done. We ain't even halfway done. All right? Y'all have a good one. We out.